Hello, everybody. Welcome to the One Fear Per Year podcast. And I am just thrilled because my next guest, oh my goodness, I saw him deliver a story. It was a 5-minute story, and he just blew my mind. So, Ray, thank you so much for joining me on this One Fear Per Year podcast.
Oh my God, Janice, what a great topic to talk about. What a great cause to have. It's unbelievable how other people can help other people overcome their fear, and just one a year changes a lot of things.
Absolutely. And they say like we teach what we're still learning or needing to work through in our own lives. So every time I speak about it or do an interview or whatever, it's just this reminder for me to show up big, bold, brave, and, do life where I have no regrets. And speaking of life with no regrets, how have you approached your life? Like, how has fear played a role in your life, and how is that journey going for you currently?
To me, it's a constant struggle because there's I have this it could be imposter syndrome. I'm not sure what you call it, but anytime I join a group, anytime I'm in a room full of people, I always figure that they know what they're doing, and I'm not like the least bright one in the room. And you have to kind of overcome that. I think maybe everything kind of comes from your childhood somehow. And when I was a little kid, I actually wore a bucket on my head in third grade because if you couldn't see me, I didn't have to talk to you. And that was the way I was. I was the shyest kid in the world, and that all came. So in kindergarten, my mom used to wear wraparound skirts. Remember those things,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And when I would get really shy, I would just walk inside the safety of mom's wraparound skirt, right? Well, at the very first open house in kindergarten, one of the teachers, Mrs. Carrillo, actually wore the same wraparound skirt my mom had on. So from where I stood, it looked identical. And I will never forget the sound Mrs. Carrillo made, woo, when I walked in the wrong skirt. And I came out, and the whole school was laughing at me, right? Not with me, but at me. So I shut down. And I had one friend for like 4 or 5 years, and didn't really say much or do much. Didn't wasn't active, but I had a fifth grade teacher that saw something in me I didn't know was there, and he pulled me aside the second day, and he said, "Ray, I know your secret, and it's safe with me." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Well, you sit back there next to Dan. That was my one friend. You say things to Dan, and then Dan tells them to the class. Dan is the class clown. So you are the class clown's head writer." And I thought that was the coolest thing in the world, right? And he actually pushed me. I would not be where I am today without that guy, Mr. Huber. And he pushed me. He told other kids I was funny because the kids would come and say, "Mr. Huber says you're funny. Say something funny." And I must have, because then I had five or six friends. And most people just go, "Okay, look what I did. I helped that kid out." But he's like, "No, we got more work to do." He pulled me aside in the middle of the year and said, "We got a school play coming up, and you didn't audition, but don't worry, I saved your role. I'm the director. You're going to play the lead." He made me the lead in the school play. And he took me through this whole process. Long story short, I now had 30 friends in that class. But the day before the school play, it's like, oh my God, I'm not talking to them. I'm talking to 217 strangers, you know? They're gonna be in those like folding squeaky chairs at the auditorium and everything. And I freaked out. And I told Mr. Huber, I said, I'm gonna be sick tomorrow. And he goes, "This is a school play." And he goes, "Yeah, you wouldn't want to get people sick because I'm sick, would you? That wouldn't be fair." That was something he had talked about being fair. And he said the weirdest thing. He said, "Do you feel a thumping in your chest?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I'm probably having a heart attack," right? And and then he gave me the best piece of advice, which I've kind of used ever since. He said, "That thumping in your chest, it's not your heart, it's your dreams." And
Who is this teacher? What
he,
the heck?
when I told this story in various ways a lot, and I would get feedback, and I did it. I talked to probably 50 kids that had this guy as a teacher. All of them, best they ever had, and he was only there for like 2 years. Um, and
Wow.
yeah, he was so impactful, and he looked like, he had the bowl cut and the walrus mustache. He kind of looked like a beetle, and just the greatest guy in the world. What happened? I did that play, right, and I was the lead, and so the play's ending, and there's two lines left of the play. I have no idea what they are in their mind. I'm the only guy on stage. I'm ending the show, and I was sitting there. My mom said, "You looked like you wanted to cry," and I remember thinking, should I cry right now? Because adults like it when we cry. They get very sympathetic. I actually thought that standing there. And as I'm standing there, what happened was I felt that thump, and I like, oh, this is what he's talking about. And he said, don't fear it, face it, walk toward it, smile. It's something great's about to happen. So I said, I don't know. I just walked toward the audience and I said the first thing that came to my mind. It was a Shakespeare play, and I said, Lord Shakespeare has written tremendous lines to end tonight's play, but what they are, alas, I know not. And I bowed. And the place went nuts. And he dropped the curtain, and I'm hearing this, and I'm like, oh my God, did I screw up the play? Because they're laughing. It wasn't really a funny play. And but he came up and he hugged me and he said, "You didn't freeze. Now you're free."
Wow. And this is just so ripe with so many good things. But I know just from what you've told me that then you ended up doing stand-up comedy for a big chunk of your life. So how did that childhood moment of this play and this teacher that, was so impactful play into that part of your life?
Well, what I found is that I didn't know I was funny, and I never think about being funny, but I just kind of developed it. My dad was funny. I didn't think so. He was my dad, right? And my brother was the outgoing person, and I watched him tell a joke down a whole train. While we were on this train, he told everybody, and I tried it once and it failed. I'm like, I'm never doing this again, And that was before the whole kindergarten incident, I think. And so my brother was like the childhood star. My sister wound up um, going on and singing for a living, and she was on Broadway and all this kind of thing. But I didn't want anything to do with what they did because I was the youngest and they were successful in that, and I couldn't possibly be as good at them. So I shut that down. And I went up, I did sports, and uh, I wound up discovering I was funny. It was kind of like, if you give a kid a new toy and he overuses it. That's the kind of funny I was at first. And then I said, I'm watching stand up. I'm going, I could do that. And I realized that there was a difference between connecting and putting on a show. And it was easier for me to put on a show than it was to connect. And so I had to figure out different ways to have conversations with people. I could hold a room full. I could say things a room would laugh at, but the one-on-one thing I could never really do. And so there's different types of stuff that I had to overcome. But I wound up in college. We were sitting at there's a brew pub on campus in UC Santa Barbara, and they had these scrolling things of what's coming up and all these events. It said, amateur comedy night, sign up, blah, blah, blah. It was a contest. And I told my friends, I said, yeah, I could win that. And they're like, really? Yeah. Like, okay. So they signed me up. So I had to do it. And I did win that. But I thought, okay, that's it. And I realized, oh, I'm coming to San Francisco. That's where a lot of great comics are. I could never do it there. Again, new kid in the room. So I never did it for 2 years. But I thought, you know what? I'm young. I can still do that. I can fail and still go do something else. So I went to watch an open mic night, and there actually this guy who did this thing I'm about to tell you, he wound up winning like an Emmy or two or something. He's a great comedy writer. His name is Kevin Kataoka, and I haven't talked about him in years. Hi, Kevin, if you're out there. Uh, he closed. They used to have Joe Carcione, the greengrocer, in San Francisco as a local TV guy, and he talked about the stuff that the vegetables and all these things. And so he would close my imitation of Joe Carcione as a bowler, and he pulled a cabbage out of a bag and he rolled it down the aisle right there. Thank you, good night. And I saw that and I go, I could do this. And that's where it started. That's where it started.
And did you actually make money doing this?
I made a living. It wasn't a great living, but I did make a living, and I wound up writing for a lot of other people and writing for people that did appear on the shows that you see. It was a good ride, but it was a young man's game, and I didn't feel like I wanted to do what my other friends were doing and have a life. So I walked away from it and went into sales and sales management, and today I just combine the two.
I love that about combining the two and finding our passions and all of that. Now, if someone's listening and they feel really trapped in fear, like the thumping in the chest is real, it happens often, maybe even worse than that, maybe panic attacks, just a lot of anxiety and fear around whatever it may be. What are some tools, tricks, things that you've learned that could help someone like that out?
One of the greatest things that I went to this teaching seminar series of workshops, and the person was supposed to help us deal with difficult people, and he was talking about I didn't really understand what he was talking about, but I pulled one phrase out of all that he talked about. I took his whole 8-week seminar and I turned it into one question, and that question has helped me in exactly those situations. Is that a thought or is it a fact? And if you realize, oh my God, it's not true because I've done this right before. So the other, that's one thing. The other one is careful the questions you ask yourself, because our brain doesn't, it thinks, but it doesn't understand emotion behind the question. And I forget where the study came from, but when you ask yourself a question, you get like 2,000 answers. And the average person, 87% of the time, is negative. So if you ask your question in the wrong way, have you ever done this? Why am I such an idiot?
Oh,
Right?
yes.
I just asked that question in my brain and go, oh my God, the boss has a question. He wants to know why he's an idiot. Here you go, Ray. Remember that time you did this? Then you're an idiot. You're an idiot. You're an idiot. And you walk away from that question with 2,000 ways that prove to you that you're an idiot. If you could reframe that, how do I make this better next time? You get 2,000 of those answers. Which way leads up? Which way leads down? Those are two simple things that the only thing we control are our thoughts. And that's the great part, is we do control it. It's like your thoughts are like your shirt. You can change it whenever you want. Now this one's kind of it looks Jetsony kind of there. But the thing is that it's like your attitude, you can change it whenever you want. The beauty of humor is that we cannot have two emotions at the same time. So when you go in, the second I make you laugh, anger's gone, uh, everything else is gone. You can actually create calm from chaos with one laugh. And it's the simplest and easiest thing to do. It's not a gift, it is a process that people can actually learn how to become funny. Even if you're not funny, you can take advantage of humor. At work, if you are funnier than the person standing next to you, 84% of the people think that you're doing a better job than the other person, whether that's true or not. And you don't have to be Robin Williams. You can send emails that have a little cartoon on them, to take advantage of that. The people that come out the lowest are people that try to get laughs that are inappropriate. But the people that are almost that bad are the people that don't try at all. They're not perceived as being good workers. They're not perceived as being great at what they do. They just kind of disappear.
Yep. And it's getting into the arena, right? It's the man in the arena who is doing the work and maybe bloody and maybe a little dirty, but like they're they're standing there and they are the ones making that choice to grow, to improve, to embrace messy action, messy, imperfect action. And that's what I love, I feel like, about comedy. Whenever I am feeling really down, just not great, my first go-to is a stand-up comedy routine. And I love how you said, I mean, yeah, it's two emotions. So if I'm feeling depressed and negative, and then I go and I watch something and I'm laughing and it's bringing me joy, then I'm choosing that mental space to be at, which is, why wouldn't we choose that mental space? It's a good place to be. And since this is the One Fear Per Year podcast, is there anything coming up in the next year or in the future that there's some fear around in your life or in your being, but that you want to do this certain thing? Is there anything coming up for you like that?
I'm actually right in the middle of it right now. I'm it'll be done by the time this airs, but I'm doing a guy's mastermind uh, about a thing that I just created in December, and I've never really put it together all in one thing before, and so I'm like going, is this good enough? Because this is a guy that I perceive as being higher above me, more successfully, better, this better life than me. That's a thought, not a fact, but that's the way I do these things. So I'm throwing myself wholeheadedly into this guy's stuff to get where he is in my eyes. And so that's the thing I think that is so important, that you need to find people that you perceive, doesn't even have to be right that they are, but they have to, if you perceive they're farther along the I don't know, food chain of life, what the heck do you call it? The ladder of life, not the food chain. Um, then you climb. And if you hang around with people that you are you are the big fish in the little pond, you don't get anywhere. And so it's one of the things I've noticed through COVID, uh, in a little bit before, is the more I hung out with people that were successful, the more successful I got. And it wasn't necessarily they're telling me things to do, it's just that they rub off on you. And when you find good people that are fun to work with, and that's the thing about when we do the work, and if you're a solopreneur, you get to pick your clients that feed you energy, not worry about the money. Because if you find those people, we that's one of the things we select ourselves out by asking for too many people. Where if you ask for one person, you get everybody to show up.
Mm.
And what I mean by that, and I could go into San Francisco today and yell on the street corner, just start ranting and raving, and nobody turns and looks. That's Tuesday in San Francisco, right? If I went there and I yelled, "Hey, Jim," and started ranting and raving, everybody in that crowd named Jim turns and looks. Everybody that thinks that you mistook them for somebody named Jim turns and looks. Everybody that knows somebody named Jim turns and looks. And everybody else turns and looks because they're looking and see what people are turning and looking at. So by asking for one person, I got everybody's attention. Where if I yelled at everybody, I get no one's attention.
Bam. That is great. I'm going to chew on that for a while. That's really, really good. Last question for you. No right or wrong answer, but if I were to tell you to give me the exact opposite word of fear, whatever you perceive that to be, what is that word? The exact opposite.
I came up, first two that came to my head, happy and joy. Those two.
Mm,
Yeah.
I, well, because I don't know if this is true for you, but fear for me was very much the opposite of happy and joyful. So that rings very true to me. As a matter of fact, you will be proud of me. I'm trying to insert more humor into my talks. And there's this one spot where I talk about where I realized and had the awareness that fear was in the driver's seat, and that had this realization that I don't even think I was in the back seat. I was in the trunk, gagged, blindfolded, like waving my arm out of the knocked out tail light. That's how much fear I felt within. So, this idea of living life in a way that you are happy and joyful and free from that burden of trying to please everybody, make everybody happy. And all of that has just been so amazing in my life. And I am telling you right now, everybody watch out for Ray's stuff, because talk about a powerful storyteller, as you've seen in this interview. He just has all the components there and great lessons and takeaways. So, Ray, thank you so much for joining me and being an amazing human being.
Thank you so much for being a human being that is awesome and incredible yourself. It was very, very nice to come on and meet you, Janice.
And everybody else, one fear per year. Walk through those fears. You don't want to lay on your deathbed and regret and look back and say, man, I wish I would have gone and played the lead in the play or done stand up comedy or whatever it is that is on your heart to do.